The grand ballroom of the Washington Liberty Hotel was buzzing with anticipation. Tonight was the American Honor Gala, an annual event meant to celebrate veterans, first responders, and those who had dedicated their lives to serving their country. The guest list was packed with politicians, military officials, celebrities, and journalists, all waiting for the main event. At the center of attention were two women from completely different worlds, Karoline Leavitt and Caitlin and Clark. Karoline was a rising star in politics, known for her unapologetic stance on patriotism and national values despite her young age. She had already become a formidable figure in Washington, admired by many and despised by those who saw her as too bold for her own good. Caitlin, on the other hand, was a basketball icon, one of the most celebrated athletes of her generation. She had transcended sports, becoming a role model for millions. Her talent was undeniable, but what made her truly special was her ability to inspire, to stand for something greater than just the game. The two women had never expected to cross paths in such a public setting, but tonight they were both invited to be honored for their contributions to American culture and leadership. For Karoline, it was about her work advocating for veterans and standing up against those who sought to erase national identity. For Caitlin, it was about using her platform to support military families and fallen heroes. As the event began, the lights dimmed and the national anthem played. The audience rose to their feet in unison. Some placed their hands over their hearts, others clasped them in silent reverence. Karoline, seated in the front row, placed a hand over a folded American flag in her lap, one that had been given to her family when her grandfather, a World War II veteran, had passed away. To her, this flag was more than just cloth. It was a symbol of sacrifice, of everything her family had fought to preserve. Caitlin, standing on stage next to other honorees, wore a warm-up jacket embroidered with the words "Honor the Fallen," a tribute to those who had given their lives in service. It was a simple gesture, one she had done before at charity games, but tonight it carried a weight she had not anticipated. The moment the anthem ended, the whispers started. The camera zoomed in, the tension in the room shifted. A well-known media personality seated at the VIP table suddenly stood and spoke loudly enough for the entire room to hear. Karoline, Caitlin, some say these symbols represent a past that divides us rather than unites us in today's world. Isn't it time we move forward instead of clinging to outdated ideas of patriotism? The words cut through the air like a blade. Some in the audience nodded in agreement, others exchanged uncomfortable glances. A few journalists smirked, already sensing a headline. Kate turned her head slightly toward Karoline, their eyes meeting for a fraction of a second. They both knew exactly what was happening. This wasn't a question, it was a trap. And now they had a choice to make. The room held its breath, waiting for their response. Karoline slowly stood, the folded flag still clutched in her hands. Her expression remained calm, but there was a quiet fire in her eyes. She looked directly at the journalist who had spoken, her voice steady and unwavering. This flag was handed to my grandfather's family as a final honor for his service. It is not outdated. It is not a political statement. It is a reminder of sacrifice, of duty, of the price that was paid so that we could all be here tonight, freely speaking our minds. A murmur spread through the audience. Some nodded in agreement, others remained silent. The journalist smirked, clearly unfazed. That's one way to look at it, he said. But don't you think that in today's world, patriotism should be more about inclusivity rather than symbols from the past? Some might say that holding on to things like that flag does more harm than good. Karoline didn't flinch. She tightened her grip on the flag and took a step forward. Patriotism is not exclusionary. It's not a relic. It is the very thing that allows us to have this conversation. And if honoring those who have given their lives for this country is seen as harmful, then perhaps the real problem isn't the symbol, but the way we've been taught to see it. The tension in the room thickened. The journalist turned his gaze to Caitlin, clearly expecting her to distance herself from the controversy. You're an athlete, Caitlin. Your career depends on sponsorships, endorsements, public support. Do you really want to be caught up in something so polarizing? Cin could have played it safe. She could have said something vague, something neutral, something that wouldn't ruffle feathers. Instead, she stepped closer to Karoline. The first play basketball, because I love the game, she said, but I also love this country, and I love the people who have given me the opportunity to play it. That's what this jacket represents. If that's controversial, then maybe we need to ask why. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd. The journalist folded his arms, unimpressed. So you're saying you don't care about how others might interpret these symbols, that their pain doesn't matter? Caitlin let out a slow breath. What I'm saying, she said carefully, is that honoring the sacrifices of those who came before us doesn't erase the struggles we still need to face today. We can do both. We can remember where we came from and still work toward a better future. Those things aren't opposites, they're connected. For a moment, there was only silence. Then from the front row a sound broke through, a slow, deliberate clap. A decorated veteran, one of the honorees of the evening, had risen to his feet. He was A man in his late 70s, his posture still straight despite the weight of years. He looked at Karoline, then at Caitlin, and finally at the journalist. "I fought for this country," he said, his voice firm, but measured. "I lost friends for it. And I will tell you this, when I see young people like them standing up for what they believe in, I don't see division. One see hope." The room shifted. People who had been hesitant now joined in the applause. One by one more began to rise from their seats until nearly half the room was standing. Not everyone clapped. Some remained seated, whispering among themselves. Some reporters frantically typed, preparing their spin. But it didn't matter. Karoline and Caitlin had done something no one expected. They hadn't backed down, and now the entire country was about to watch what happened next. As the applause swelled, cameras flashed from every angle, capturing the moment in real time. It was no longer just an exchange of words. It was a statement, a defining moment that would soon be dissected, debated, and distorted by the media. Karoline and Caitlin stood side by side, unwavering. The veteran voice still echoed in their minds, reinforcing the reality of what they had just done. They hadn't planned this, they hadn't sought controversy. But now there was no turning back. Within minutes, the internet erupted. Clips from the event spread, rapidly uploaded, and shared across every platform. News outlets scrambled to cover the moment, but each told a different version of the story. Some portrayed Karoline and Caitlin as brave figures standing up for their beliefs, while others framed them as reckless, divisive, and out-of-touch. Television commentators wasted no time dissecting the moment. On one station, a well-known political analyst shook his head in disbelief as the clip played behind him. He turned to the camera with a sigh. "We need to ask ourselves, what message are they really sending? Is this about patriotism, or is it about stirring division at an event meant for unity?" A rival network ran a different take entirely. The host leaned forward, eyes flashing with conviction. "People are tired of being told they have to apologize for loving their country. What we saw tonight was two young women refusing to be bullied into silence. That's not controversy, that's courage." But the media's narrative wasn't the only one taking shape. Veterans organizations, military families, and ordinary citizens flooded social media with messages of support. They shared their own stories, their own